What is one of the most important things when you're deciding to buy a Balisong? Do you look for construction, channel or sandwich? Do you look for maybe the pivot system, bushings, bearings, washers? Or do you look at the material? I think material is one of the most important things. So when it comes to metal Balisongs, I think right now there are two common materials. There is titanium and aluminum. So these are the most common, but that does not mean that these are the only ones. There's also G10, there's plastic, that's not metal, but yeah. There's also G10 scales on titanium, like you see in a wrap, or there's also stainless steel, which you can see in the Canyon. But today, we are going to be talking about these two, because this is what's most readily available. And I'm going to be covering the advantages and disadvantages of both materials. And let's start with aluminum, for one simple reason. Let's start with this because it is cheaper. So the first big advantage that aluminum has over titanium is price. When it comes to beginner or intermediate Balisongs, right, you're almost always going to find that they are all aluminum. And that's because aluminum is a pretty cheap material, especially if it's 6061. So let me grab something that is 6061. Here is my Novalis cheese. The cheese is 6061, but it's Teflon coated. So let's take the cost of the cheese. The cheese costs a grand old 75 bucks, which is not very expensive at all, especially when you consider the prices of titanium knives, which are ridiculous compared to this. So if you're trying to find a budget-friendly knife, chances are you're gonna be getting an aluminum one. So yeah, first thing, price. Second thing, let's talk about another kind of advantage, depending on how you see it. Aluminum is less dense than titanium. It is quite a bit lighter. So that means whenever you make a Balisong out of aluminum, chances are it's gonna weigh less than your usual titanium knives. Of course, between 7075 and 6061, 7075 will be a bit denser, but that's within the aluminum category, so I'm gonna be packing them in as one. So in general, aluminum will be lighter than titanium, and that can be a great thing, because lighter Balisongs generally mean that they are more agile, and they are easier to change the directions that they're going. So let's say I'm flipping my cheese and I want to do maybe a ricochet. It takes very little effort. It changes direction really quick because this thing is pretty light, especially when it comes to my Sasori. This thing is super agile because of how incredibly light it is. It changes directions really easily. It does fan super well. It just is great. So yeah, everything I've said so far about aluminum has been pretty positive. So let's talk about some of the not so great things. Firstly, aluminum is quite soft. Now, it's not like it's gonna shatter when you hit something, right? But aluminum is prone to dents, or is more prone to dents and scratches than, say, titanium. I'm not saying that titanium is invincible, right? Titanium is still relatively prone to scratches, but it's not going to be damaged as easily as aluminum. So I don't have my VOP with me because I've already sold it, but the VOP is something that I had basically as an EDC for nearly a week, and it took a few drops on the concrete at my office. But dude, those handles, they didn't exactly break, right? I mean, aluminum is still metal, it's still pretty strong, but the bottom of the handles looked pretty roughed up after just 1 or 2 weeks. And that's to be expected with aluminum. Now that is just cosmetic damage, right? So aluminum is more prone to cosmetic damage, but when it comes to overall durability, chances are your aluminum knife will be completely fine. It just won't look as pretty as your titanium ones, because it doesn't hold up as well. So yeah, take note of that if you're getting an aluminum knife, or if you're trying to decide between aluminum or titanium. Now, what is the most, I guess, prevalent downside of aluminum? It is slippery. Aluminum is a very, very slippery material. Now, I don't have any good examples of that right now because my extrusion is not with me, and that is like the most slippery thing that I have. And my marbles also aren't with me. And all the aluminum bellies I have right now are actually quite grippy for different reasons. So I guess I can talk about that. Aluminum on its own, if you get raw machine aluminum, it is extremely, extremely slippery. And that's just because of the material. It's not the fault of the maker, it's not the fault of anything but the fact that aluminum is just slippery. That's just one of its characteristics. Now, all metal is slippery, right? That's just how metals work. Science. But aluminum is just quite a bit more slippery than the other metals that are used for balisongs, like titanium and stainless steel. So, how do makers counteract that? Well, firstly, you can have some texturing, like on this accessory. There's some relatively rough surface texturing that helps a lot of the grip on the surface, but not on the sides. So the sides are still kind of slippery. So one way to fix it is through textures, which a lot of makers already do. But another way is through coatings. So as I already mentioned, the cheese is Teflon coated. That means it is quite a bit more grippy than raw aluminum or raw anodized aluminum, even satin aluminum or bead blast, especially bead blast. So yeah, if your aluminum belly is coated in any way, like Teflon, Cerakote, chances are it's gonna be more grippy than raw aluminum. So yeah, that's the last point I have for aluminum grip. And yeah, on to titanium. This is what you find in mid to high-end balisongs. If your balisong is a grill, it's probably titanium, and that is for a few good reasons. Firstly, grip. Titanium on its own is much, much grippier than aluminum, and that's just what the material is like. Now, stainless steel is also quite grippy, but the problem with that is stainless steel is far too dense, which makes it very, very heavy. So if I had my Canyon here, I would show you, but the Canyon is a stainless steel balisong that works very well. It's very durable, but it has to be super skeletonized. So yeah, titanium is just as grippy as stainless steel, but it is nowhere near as heavy. So you don't really need to like worry about your belly being far too heavy with titanium, unlike stainless steel. Now, compared to aluminum, titanium has significantly better grip. So the Superfly obviously has some milling, right? But even without considering the milling, just these parts, the smooth parts of the titanium, just the smooth parts of the titanium are quite a bit grippier than basically all of my aluminum bellies, other than say my Corvus, because that is in a realm of its own with grip. It's just so aggressively textured. But when it comes to just the raw metal, titanium is much more grippy than aluminum, and that is the first big advantage. Secondly, durability. So, aluminum balisongs are quite soft, as I've already said, but titanium is the complete opposite. Titanium is a more expensive material because it's harder to find, and it's quite a bit more durable. So this Superfly has been beat quite a bit, but you can't even notice because it's held up so well. There's a few scratches here and there which I can barely even find. Yeah, I cannot see them right now. There's like a dent in the bottom which I also cannot find. Yeah, point is, titanium holds up really well to beating. So if you're trying to get a beater and you want it to last for a long time, titanium is probably the way to go. And if you want to get a grail, or something that you just want for a collection, point proven. I did not worry about anything because I know that's gonna hold up. Anyways, if you want to get something that's more like just a collector's piece, I would say titanium is the way to go because, you know, even if you drop it, it's probably gonna be fine. It might suffer some minor cosmetic damage, but it's probably gonna be mostly fine. So yeah. I think overall, titanium is probably the way to go, unless you can't afford it, because it is just better than aluminum in basically every way, other than price. So yeah, I think the debate between aluminum and titanium is pretty clear-cut. If you can afford it, titanium is probably better, but if you can't, aluminum is perfectly fine. For the price range that aluminum knives cover, they are perfectly good. They mostly have countermeasures to aluminum's lack of grip, like the Vault has G10, the Corvus has a lot of texturing, the cheese has a Teflon coating. Yeah, I would say the grip part is not as big of a problem now, because so many makers are counteracting it. But yeah, that's about it for aluminum versus titanium. I think just get what you want, right? Everything I said here, I try to be objective as much as I can, but doesn't really have to affect your opinion if you don't want it to. So if you want to get aluminum, go for that. If you want to get titanium, go for that. And yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.